Acclaimed journalist, Matt Taibbi lived in Russia when the Soviet Union fell and crony capitalism began. He discusses on breaking points.
Early Democrats in Russia. And Yeltsin was impressed by the fact that that Putin had helped this guy escape prosecution on corruption charges. And so Putin was really brought in initially to help make sure that Boris Yeltsin would not be pursued on corruption charges because he was facing them at the time when he left office. Now, after he became president is when he sort of turned on the West. But initially, he was one of ours. Like he was a person that most of the people, the Western commentators, the Western politicians, the diplomats in town. I mean, I was there during this time. The expats, they all were saying things like, well, yeah, he was in the KGB, but by the 70s, the KGB wasn't so bad. You know, like that was kind of the attitude. And then suddenly, you know, obviously there was a big sea change about that a few years after he assumed the presidency, but not initially. I mean, there was like a 3 or 4 year period there where Putin was considered a good guy by much of the American population in town, or at least a significant portion of it.
Right. I want to get your reaction to this poll that I saw floating around. It's from YouGov, and they asked the question, which do you think best describes Russia? 42% said communist, 13% said socialist, 11% said capitalist, and 17% said something else. What do you make of that, Matt? That was basically what I made of it too. It's so depressing.
I mean, this is like the whole. Remember that Donna Brazil tweet?
What was it?
She was Donna Brazil. She tweeted something about how the communists are still dictating the terms of the debate. This was during the Russiagate mess.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, there's tremendous. It's almost like this archaic hangover from the Cold War era, and people have a really difficult time grappling with the idea that Russia and the Soviet Union are different countries. And that the people there are, you know, there hasn't been communism in Russia in a long time. And Putin, although he has some nostalgia for the Soviet Union, he's not communist in any way that would.
Right. He doesn't want to be communist.
He doesn't want to be communist.
He likes the power of the Soviet Union and the world prestige and the sort of imperial nature of it.
Exactly. But certainly not any of the economic aspects of it are not attractive to him. He's a nationalist. He's sort of a classic Pinochet style, sort of nationalist strongman is what he is. But the communists, no. And it's kind of amazing that people that percentage of Americans still think that way. But I guess they do.
You know, use then the example of what happened in Russia, and then bring it to our example here at home. We have calls now by popular figures, politicians, to jail or call treason political opponents, any questioning of the official narrative, a total crackdown on state media, on channels, which, look, I mean, we find it useful personally to find, as a newscaster, to say, hey, this is what they're saying, this is what we're thinking.
This is the Russian propaganda.
This is the Russian propaganda, like, just so you're aware, but this is what they think, and that could help you then calibrate. When you see all of this happening in the context of your experience in Russia and watching the crackdown and all of that happen, are you afraid? Like, what do you think the consequences of this could be?
I'm very afraid. I'm made very nervous by it. I was in Russia when Putin really accelerated the crackdown against the media. It actually started much earlier under Yeltsin. As early as 1994, there were important investigative reporters in Russia being killed by like exploding briefcases and things like that. There was a guy named Dima Holodov who was killed. But then in 1999 and 1990, when Putin came on the scene, there were friends of mine who worked at places like Novaya Gazeta who were beaten, and then eventually a couple of them were even killed for looking into things like the apartment bombing scandal. And at the time, there was a small minority of us who were saying this is a really bad indicator of what this regime is going to be like. He's already beating and cracking down on the media. He's closing up companies like Media Most, which was owned NTV, which was the last sort of independent news TV station in Russia at the time. Now he's gone full bore into this much more extreme version of controlling everything, or trying to control everything, outlawing the use of the word war, for instance, to describe what's going on in Ukraine. And I would think, looking at this as an American, that this would be a way for us to sort of evaluate our own values and say, wow, this is what we don't want to be, right? Like we don't want to be Vladimir Putin, who's so desperate to control every piece of information that we're cracking down on everything. And that's kind of what we're not seeing. I think what we're seeing instead is this desperation to use every tool imaginable to make sure that, not only the Russian point of view, that Russian state media is not seen, but that individuals may not even express or even relay what the Russians are saying about a certain thing. And it's amazing to me that Americans don't even see the logical connection between something like outlawing BBC and VOA in Russia and taking RT off the air in America and Europe. Like they don't see a connection between that at all. It's amazing to me.
Hello? Hey, so I've got a question for you. I don't know the answer to this. Is Russia communist or capitalist?
Communist.
Bingo. Have a good one.